Hello and welcome to another episode of Into the Afroverse with your host, William Jones. And Into the Afroverse, we're taking Black folks into the future. I had the opportunity not too long ago to attend a networking event at Baltimore Harbor. And for all of you business owners, for you aspiring business owners and so forth, I would strongly recommend that you connect with your state chamber of commerce, because there's a lot of networking, a lot of information is being passed around and many folks are unaware of. And one of the events that I found out in my work, in my connection with the Maryland Chamber of Commerce, was an event at Baltimore Harbor called Inspire Maryland. And one of the first exhibits that I saw at this event actually brought me to meeting today's guest, Mr. David White. And we were talking, and of course, when I bring him on, he's going to explain a little bit more about what he does and his technology. But I was really taken by this technology, and I'm sure that you will be too. And I asked David to send an intro, to kind of introduce himself to you guys. And I also found that very interesting. So let's get started. Mr. David White, in terms of his story, he says that that the Maryland lottery was at $750 million. And he prayed to God, said, God, I'll do whatever it takes for you to make me rich. And I thought God would give me the lottery numbers. But the lottery numbers came and went. And then one night he actually had a dream. And he saw the side cam, but he didn't think much of it. He said that he kept having this dream over and over. And on the seventh night, he woke up and drew a picture of it. And little by little, over a couple of years, it's going back like 2018, little by little, over a couple of years, he's able to actually create this device that it initially thought was for the people. He thought that it was creating a way to help Black men diagnose colon cancer rather than getting the traditional colonoscopy. And when there was no interest, he turned to the animal market. And when he did, there was a lot of interest in his product. And like I said, I was so taken by this story. I want to bring on David to talk a little bit more about this technology, some other things that he wanted to share with us. And with that, I would like to welcome Mr. David White. Welcome. How you doing?
Very good. Thank you so much. And I just like to thank Will for, giving myself and my company this platform to really speak about the technology that our company has, started to build. Because in a lot of minority communities, we don't traditionally have the chance to speak about what we're building until we've partnered with someone else, and then they use their media connections to help us. So I would like to thank Will on his part for finding us, and not only finding us, but also bringing this information to the community and into the forefront. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, you're so welcome. And like I said, when I walked into the event, when I walked to this networking event, Inspire Maryland, yours was the first table that I saw, and the display just caught my attention. You know this, and just started talking. And immediately I said, well, I got to get you on and introduce you to our listeners. So could you go back a little bit? Because I found that story fascinating in terms of what led you to create the technology, and we could talk more about it. So this is going back to 2018. And you said that you prayed to make millions of dollars and it didn't work out. So could you give us a little bit more on that story, please?
Yeah, and to just say something before I even get started, I was even contemplating even telling you that, telling you the story, because when I tell people the story, a lot of times they just look at me funny, look at me like I'm, a holy roller, a
Right.
Bible thumper, or something like that. And but when God gives you something, and especially when something that you ask for, it's your duty to bring it to the people and tell the people that I asked God for this and that He did bring it to me. But
Wow.
it started back in 2018 when the Maryland lottery was at $750 million. And I said, God, I'll do whatever it takes for you to make me rich. And I was trying to be cute with my prayer. And I thought that, the Lord would understand what was on my heart, and He would send me the numbers for the lottery, even if I didn't win the whole thing. Maybe I just won a million or 50,000,
Right.
something like that. But the lottery came and went. And about a week after the person had won that 750 million, I had a dream, and in that dream, I saw a camera tablet, and I could see the insides, and I could see it just traveling through a GI tract. And then I woke up, and I didn't think much of it. A couple of days later, I had the same dream, but
Wow.
it's more in depth next time. And then the night after that, I had the same dream. The same night, the next night, I had the same dream. The next night, I had the same dream. The next night, I had the same dream. And on the seventh night, the dream was just so powerful and so in depth to the point I had to wake up, and I
That's
couldn't go back to sleep until I drew it. And I just drew a little square box. Like I learned how to draw like three-dimensional, squares and
right.
things like that in the art class. So I drew one of those, and I drew a circle on the front, and I drew a wavy line on the back that's supposed to represent some type of antenna, and it was supposed to be this recording device. And I thought
Wow.
what God was sending me was a device to help Black men, because we tend to not like going and getting colonoscopies done,
Right.
because traditional method is not something that's really highly, it's not really looked, favorably upon in our community. Anything going around our butt, it's just like, man, I'm out.
Right.
And then especially the sedation method, of it too,
Right.
uh, turns a lot of us away. So I thought this was a way that we could orally take a tablet, and then we could find out if we have any GI tract issues, or if our colon, if we had any type of cancers or lacerations in our colon or anything like that. Um, but as it grew over the years, uh, I really wasn't finding any interest. Nobody was really trying to contact me back on working with me or anything like that. And then for whatever reason, I just thought to myself, well, let's just turn to the animal market. As soon as I
Wow.
turned to the animal market, it was like the floodgates opened up, and everybody wanted to work with me now, and everybody saw that what I had was worth something. And I want to say this: in the dream, I didn't see in the dream that a man was taking it. I did see an animal taking it in the dream, but
Wow.
to me, the way I had interpreted it was that this dream was just a representation of what it was meant to be, because I knew that there were preclinical testing that had to be done. Usually was on animals, so I thought that's what the dream was about. But the dream was literal. It was telling me, no, this is meant for animals. This was meant for large animal endoscopy, so that we can view the inside tracts, and make sure that they are clean.
That
And,
that is incredible.
and
That is
yeah,
incredible.
and it was just, and it was one of those things where every time I wanted to give up, something would happen, and it would push me right back into the business. I've tried to give up on this probably 7 or 8 times. I've tried to start other businesses instead of doing this, and every time somebody reaches out, somebody says, "Hey, what's going on with that business?" I'm curious about it, that type of thing, and then it pushes you right back into it. And now
Right.
I'm here, and I feel blessed and highly favored just to be in this position.
That is excellent. Now, in terms of your background, is your background in this type of technology? So, like, what is it that gave you the know-how to put this all together and to make it happen?
So in the beginning, I actually had I'll say mild technical experience, because I am a child of the late '90s.
Mhm.
I was born in '97, so I grew up. That I was born in the late '90s, raised basically in the early 2000s. So technology was essentially our world. We kind of grew up around it. So I will say I had a little bit of technical literacy, but nothing uh, formal. And so what I ended up doing was I just went on YouTube, and I learned how to code, uh, and I practiced it all the time. And so once I got confident enough in my coding skills, I went and I made a piece of code, and I was able to have it work, and it did work, and we were able to run with it. But eventually, what I went on and did was I went to through Google. They have this thing called Google Coursera, and it's these classes you can take to get certified in different things. And so I went and I became a Google certified IT technician. And from getting that, I was able to go and actually get an IT job working for Somerset County Public Schools. I worked for them for 2 years, and now I'm working for the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. And I'll tell you, it's crazy how all this led me to the right place at the right time. Because
Right.
if I had went and I got certified 2 years earlier, I may have been at UMS 2 years earlier. But
Right.
because I'm in this position where I'm here now, UMS just now is ready to open up a veterinary school in the next 3 years. So they've allowed me to have strategic partnership with them, to kind of they'll gather data from me, as opposed, in the way of how this technology will work on large animals, and then they can use that as a way of showing this, to other state officials,
Right.
essentially the validity of them needing a veterinary school. And so, everything kind of worked in this path. But as far as the being trained, my highest education in IT is through the Google IT certifications, and also just through projects I've worked on, for myself.
Right. Wow, that's incredible. And if you're just joining us, this is Into the Afroverse with your host, William Jones. We're taking Black folks into the future. So, and we're joined today by Mr. David White. And he's talking about this fascinating piece of technology and giving us the backstory to it. So, can you tell our listeners, what is it and how does it work?
Yes. So the side cam itself it's a camera module. So most of you, well, I won't say most of you, probably a good amount of you are probably listening to this radio show probably on your cell phone. So think about the camera on the back of your cell phone and how it's able to take and capture images and also video. And then it can send those images or video to other platforms, maybe YouTube itself, or maybe Facebook or Instagram or something like that. And that's, in a nutshell, kind of what the SciCam is. It's an ingestible camera tablet that, when swallowed, will capture images of the esophagus, which is the throat, down into the stomach, and then into the large intestine, and finally passing through the colon. As it captures these images, it's going to send those images to a third-party server. The third-party server we currently use is Gmail, or I'm sorry, not Gmail, but it's actually called Google Drive. And the reason we use Google Drive is it's free currently, and Google tends to do partnerships with other companies to help them store their data. So that would be it would allow us on the back end to not have to charge our customers for storage of their photos or videos.
Right.
And once those images are uploaded to that server, being Google Drive, those images within 5 seconds of capture can then be viewed. Because they can be viewed so quickly, now the diagnosis and treatment of that animal can then be done a little bit quicker. And we also are reducing the cost from about $500 for an endoscopy down to $250. By making it a tablet that's taken orally by the animal, it's also safer for the veterinarians because it doesn't require them to figure out sedation methods. And it's also not going to require them to stand behind the animal where they could be kicked, trampled, or in some
Wow.
cases even killed.
Wow. Now, when you say tablet, I'm picturing a tablet like an aspirin size or something like that. Is that the size we're talking about?
So it'll be about twice the size of an aspirin tablet.
Okay.
But the important thing for us to remember about this is that the size of a horse, a cow, and a sheep,
Right.
their mouth can open a lot larger, and it can accept much larger. I'll say pieces of equipment, because that's what this is.
Mm.
Like if you look at a cow, you can put a whole Granny Smith apple in a cow's mouth.
Right.
Our
Right.
tablet would be about you remember the Hershey bars where you could break off a piece of it and there would just be the smaller Hershey bars inside of it.
Yes.
So imagine taking two of those side by side, those pieces. That's about the width, and then stack another two on top, and that's about the size that it's going to be. So it's going to be about four of those little tiny Hershey bars put together, and
Mhm.
that's all the animal is going to have to take.
Right.
Uh, and then once it swallows it and it passes through the esophagus, then it'll be passed through and capture images. And what we've done is we actually intend on making the case bright red. That way, it can be easily distinguished from the manure that's coming out. So it can be picked out and then either thrown away or sent back to us.
Excellent. Now, when you say us, what's the name of your company? And can you give us some background on that?
Yes, so the company is Tomorrow's Bio Today. I actually established the company the same year that I had that the dream came to me, and that the first iteration of the SciCam was actually built. So what our company is based on, what our mantra, our creed really is to use low cost technologies to assist in the medical field to reduce costs on in both the veterinary field and the human field. And so what that really means is, what we're trying to do is we're trying to look at all the more expensive technologies that currently exist and try to create more reasonably cost methods of producing the same type of technology that provides the same quality or better quality of imagery or sensory or of diagnostics. And what this is going to do is this is going to actually help the end user, which could be humans at some point in the
Right.
company's history. And what I mean by help humans is it'll reduce the cost, because of if a hospital has to pay $12 million for a piece of technology, well, that technology, that cost is actually going to have to be broken down by the end users, and so you'll actually see that cost in your medical billing. Now, traditionally, insurance will take care of that, but in
Right.
some cases, you may be required to take care of it, such as a CAT scan. Sometimes insurance may not cover a CAT scan; they may require you to pay for that CAT scan. So if we can reduce the cost that it would take for a hospital or any medical treatment facility to acquire that technology, then we can help to lower the cost on the patient. So that's kind of our goal, to make, I don't like saying make it cheaper, just to make
Right.
it more affordable.
Right. Well, I'm all for lowering the cost, however you phrase it. So I'm good with that. So you're giving us the potential of this technology, but right now you're talking about being used primarily on animals, right? What
Correct.
what's the potential there? And I'm not a pet owner. I'm not a farmer. How does this affect people that don't fall into that category? So what's the potential of the technology when it comes to the animals? And also, how will it affect the consumer in terms of this camera being implemented?
So this can affect the end consumer in two ways. I like to split it between those of us who are vegetarian/vegan and those
Mhm.
of us who are not. Let's start off with those of us who are not, uh, who do consume pork or beef.
Mhm.
So when the animal takes this tablet, it's not just looking for one thing. It's actually capturing the images of the GI tract itself. So if there's anything else in there inside the animal that may leach out, such as an infection that may leach out into the meat and contaminate the meat, then we can then that farmer can then uh, make a decision on what needs to happen to that piece of cattle, uh, so it doesn't get sent out. So this technology would, for meat eaters, it would help to protect us and help to those farmers to show that what they're putting out on the market is healthy, and it's not going to be something that's going to kill us. It's not full of a bunch of byproducts, and it's actually going to be safe for us to consume.
Mhm.
And then when you look at the vegetarian and vegan side of it, if those animals can have cancerous tumors in their body, or if they have infection, or they have cuts and abrasions that have infection in it, and then they are passing feces through it, that feces is then going to the ground. And then we use that cow manure, or we use that hog manure to go and then plant our crops. So what's happening to those crops? Those crops are going to absorb some of that nutrients, and some of that nutrients will be infection that
Right.
we passed over to those crops. So not only will we know if we should sell the meat, we'll know we should even sell the manure or any part of the animal. So it'll essentially help to not clean our ecosystem, but provide us with the information that we need to make to make the ecosystem a lot cleaner than what it is currently.
I see. I see. Wow, that's great. Because yeah, when folks hear it, like I said, if they're not animal owners, if they're not farmers, or you stated media, they might be, saying, "What does it got to do with me?" So thank you for explaining that. So in terms of you get the vision, you put it together. What's been the reception in terms of once you put this out there? And also, once again, here on Into the Afroverse, we're taking Black folks into the future. We can't leave out the fact that you are a Black man, you're bringing this product out. Did you find any obstacles where folks were looking at you, making certain assumptions based on your appearance? How did this all work out in terms of you taking it out into the world and sharing your genius?
So I'll say for Capital America, I've had very good response. Like I said, once we switched over to the animal market, I've had very good response from Capital America. Now, rural America, where it has to be taken, you
Right.
have to go into these areas, you have to go into 4-H communities, you have to go into the rodeo communities, and you got to talk to them about the technology because they're the ones who are generally going to be using it. And what you find is there are very few minority farmers. There are very few minorities overall, whether you be Black, Hispanic, Asian, that participate in those fields. Um, so for I'll say a good amount of people, they just passed by or they
Mhm.
showed interest. But there were quite a few people, not generally at the 4-H communities, but more so at the rodeos, who tended to make uh, 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 crude comments or give you a side eye, and you know what I mean by that
Right.
side eye.
Yes, I do.
Uh, or they just look at you with that funny look, like, what are you even doing here?
Wow.
Um, and so you do have to deal with that aspect of it. Um, and I actually just talked because we're actually we're gearing up to accept some funds from a venture capital company, and we've actually talked to them about that. And one of the things that we're looking to do, um, and as unfortunate as it is, I don't really like to say, well, it is unfortunate. It's unfortunate that I have to do it in this way. It's not because I want to, but because I feel I have to. That's why it's unfortunate that we will have to hire individuals who we feel are better, who will be better accepted by that community in order to get our technology out there.
Wow. And
And,
and that's the frustrating thing. We've seen this story time and time again through the years. This is not a new phenomenon. Through the years in this country, we have Black people like yourself with these ingenious inventions, these creations, these innovations, but yet we have to, I guess, cloak it for, lack of a better term, uh, behind some other folks that are more, accepted by others. And, if we're talking about Black folks moving to the future, we're really looking forward to a time that will no longer have to be the case. And unfortunately, it still remains a reality for many of us. And you're just kind of affirming what many of us already know.
and
Now,
it's and it really it's really frustrating because when I go and talk to a lot of my mentors and I sit down with them and we kind of we just chop it up really,
right,
but they're like, yeah, look at my business, and then they own barbecue spots, or they own stores, or they own a clothing brand, and they do not have Black owned business on there. Now when there's grants and stuff, they will apply as Black owned business, but they don't they do not tend to uh, uh, they don't tend to glorify
right.
or they don't use it as a way of they don't advertise it. That's the term. They do not advertise that they are a Black owned business. And what they've shared with me is a lot of times when they did put that they were Black owned businesses, other races didn't think that they were allowed to shop with them. They thought that it was
Wow.
exclusively for Black people and that they couldn't shop with them. So they took that away. And they said the hardest thing was realizing that business is business, and that there's separation of business and then personal identity,
Right.
and that just because you may not be the face of the business does not mean you don't own the business, and does not mean that you aren't as important as you truly are. And the one thing they pointed out to me, they were like, look at look at Aunt Jemima Sarah. Look at Popeyes.
Right.
Neither of those are owned by black people, but they use us, and so they make us think that we own these things, and so we go to them and we
Right.
buy these things. And they were explaining, well, this is kind of what you have to do in business. You have to understand who is your target demographic, and you have to use people who are part of that demographic to sell what you want.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah, and when you talk about racism in this country, we're always having these conversations about the more overt forms of racism and these obvious burdens that Black people can bear. But it's burdens like these that are not often talked about and can often have a huge impact and long-term impact on our communities. With that being said, folks that are listening, how can they find you and how can they support you?
So you can find me at tomorrowsbiotoday.com. And you can also find me at tomorrowsbiotoday@gmail.com. That's our email that you can send us an email out to. Hey, we'll hopefully, when we do our when this goes live, we'll be able to, as we advertise for it and let people know that this is coming out. I'll be able to send you over my email, and we can attach that onto onto the upcoming live session between the two of us, so that the people can have a chance to actually see it. Because I know Tomorrow's Bio Today, it can be spelled a couple different ways, and it might be a little bit hard to find because it is all typed together.
Right.
So hopefully we can get, me and you can and set something like that up if possible.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Excellent. And I say this with all my guests when we have these great conversations. The time moves so quickly, and we're coming to the close of this segment. First of all, I'd like you, because we talked about this, I'd like for you to come back to discuss a little bit more of some of the things that you wanted to talk about in terms of but giving us insights to different ways that we can access certain revenue streams and so forth, as you mentioned. As we move into the future, what is your vision, not only in terms of what you're trying to do, but what would you say is just your vision of Black folks in the future, and how are you helping to bring that to fruition?
So my biggest thing for us together is, one, we have to stick together. That's going to be our biggest thing. We have to stick together, and by sticking together, I don't mean that if you go to a Black business and they do you wrong, you don't have to keep shopping with somebody who does you wrong.
Right.
But if somebody is doing right by you, then you should continue to use them. You should continue to refer people to them. And if you're a Black business owner and you know that you have regulars who come in there all the time and they participate with you, and they're helping keep your business alive, then at some point, you should look out for people. Not all the time, not all the time, and
Right.
that's why I want to put not all the time, but we gotta look out for people. Secondly, the second thing is, we gotta stop expecting schools to educate our children. Education starts at the home. And we have to be the ones to educate our children. We have to teach our children mathematics. We have to be the ones to sit down and read with our children, teach our children to write. And most importantly, we got to teach our children our history. We can't wait for 1 year, for 1 month a year, the shortest month of the year, to teach our children history. And
Right.
not only that, the majority of the teachers don't look like us. So they don't even know our history. And a
Right.
lot of them, some of them are trying, but they don't even know what they should teach and what they shouldn't teach, because there's a lot of politics going on there.
I
But
see.
and my last thing for us is, in the future, I see us as strong, independent communities, because I see it now. I see us starting to grow our own crops. I see us starting to have the corner stores that are owned by mom and pop that have lived in the communities. I'm seeing us flourish from HBCUs and other universities and going on in becoming doctors and lawyers. And what I want us to do is to continue to focus on those things, and not give up on pushing for athletics and things like that. But I want more of us to push in the education sector. Maybe not teaching, but education in some way. Maybe education through a trade. There are a lot of trades out there that can carry us, a long way. We need plumbers, we need electricians, we need people who can build houses, and we need people like that in our communities. Because when it's time for us in 20, 30, 40 years to go ahead and start building our large $100 million Black private communities, or our $150 million private Black owned golf course and things like that, we're going to want to try to stay in house.
Right.
So I want us to continue to push ourselves into education, into educating ourselves, and also don't look down on trades. Don't look down on those trades I just named, because those trades can make a lot of money.
Definitely. Well, thank you for that. I truly appreciate it. So one more time, Mr. David White, can you give us your contact information?
Yes, sir. This is David White of Tomorrow's Bio Today. You can find me at tomorrowsbiotoday.com or at tomorrowsbiotoday@gmail.com.
Excellent. So once again, sir, thank you for joining us. And like I said, I'm inviting you to come back, talk a little bit more, because we've had conversations offline. I know there's so much more to be said, so much more you have to offer. So that'll do it for another episode of Into the Afroverse with your host, William Jones. We're taking Black folks into the future. Remember, you can find Into the Afroverse online on the YouTube channel of the Afrofuturism Network, where you can listen to past episodes. You can also visit the Afrofuturism Network website for those of you looking for ways to support what we do here. That's afrofuturismnet.com. So visit the website, and once again, you can see how you can support us. And a special shout out to Mr. Duke Productions for producing today's episode. Thank you so much, and have a good day.